Hello and welcome back to another knitting pod. I am Lena and I'm so glad you're here to hang out with me and chat about knitting and fiber. If you are a new viewer, welcome, and I promise I don't normally look like this. If you are a returning subscriber, I'm so glad you're here, and you know I don't normally look like this. It's been a crazy last week. If you watched my last episode, you know I was on vacation and had a bit of an accident which resulted in some head trauma and some resulting black eyes. I would rather not tape looking like this, but this could last for a while. So it's one of those things that it's like, we do reality here. We are not super aspirational. We are just real. So if you are interested in the drama that resulted in this situation, I will chat about that at the end of the episode. But you're here to talk about yarn, so I don't want to bore you with those stories if that's not your jam. I will give you a little disclaimer. I have a minor concussion, so I am not feeling 100%. I don't know at what point in this video I will be too tired to keep going, so I don't know. We're going to do our best today, and I'm going to show you all the knitting I've been working on. But if I get super tired, I might just put some of the things I wanted to chat about on hold. Okay, I appreciate you understanding that I'm not my normal self today, but I can't imagine not taping. I didn't get a tape last week because of my injury, and I was so bummed about that because I was so excited to tape in a different location and I had so much to talk about. But you know, you got to roll with the punches. So here we are. We're taping this week, even if it's a short one. Hopefully it'll be an enjoyable one for you. So I do have to say that when you are out of just the normal life game, you do have more time to knit. So I do feel like I have a lot to show you. Sadly, I just am realizing I'm in the middle of a row, but again, whatever. It's just going to be harder to show you. I was working on my Painting Bricks shawl, my Pride shawl by Stephen West. Oh gosh darn it, I wish I were not in the middle of a row because I can't stretch it out to show you. Now it's all twisted. I have made so much progress, you guys, but again, I am struggling to get it where it needs to be to show you. This is gonna be a strange episode, y'all. But here it is. I have made so much progress. The problem is this bottom part is the bottom of the shawl. So I will hold it like this and hope that the needle stoppers don't fall out. You guys saw it last time. It was kind of a baby, and now I am actually, if you can believe it, done with the body. I just this morning finished this blue stripe that is the last stripe before the border, and you can see how beautiful. I'm so in love with this shawl, you guys. Sorry for this very strange position I'm holding it in, but it's kind of hard to get the whole thing in. It is a pattern, like I said, by Stephen West. It is in the, I guess this is mosaic knitting because or is it just striped? I don't know. The white framing that you see is garter stitch, and then you make these bricks by doing stockinette and then slipping these garter stitch 3 garter stitches in order to kind of make a little brick or frame. I'll show you a little more up close. It is a really fun pattern, you guys. I mean, I think you know that Anytime you knit stripes, it just seems to go by so fast and it's so fun. And this is no exception to that. I literally cannot stop knitting. The first couple of rows, I'd say 5 or 6, are kind of like, when I was knitting them, I thought, this isn't that fun. Because they go by quick, so you're constantly changing colors and having to weave in those ends as you go. At least that's what I'm doing. I highly suggest, if you're going to do a pattern like this, to weave your ends in as you go. I can kind of show you on the back side, because it just makes your life so much easier at the end of the game. But once you get the hang of like what the rhythm of the increases are to make this, it's a very, again, I can't show you because I'm in the middle of the row, but it's a very long crescent shape, I guess. And then the border has like my words are super messy right now. I'm so sorry. I'm like slow and foggy. So please pardon the fact that I don't have super great just descriptive abilities right now. I'm trying to think, is it a chevron border or not? But I don't know. The rest of it goes like this, and then the border kind of is a wide chevron. I'm just going to call it chevron for now. It's definitely longer than deep, and so I really like some depth. I'm hoping that the border gives it a lot of depth, because shockingly, this is the last row, this gorgeous bright blue. This is a colorway by Undercover Otter called Bubblegum Crisis, which I love. It's so pretty. But anyway, this is the last stripe before that border, and I'm hoping that border gives it some more depth, just because rather than just going like this, it goes kind of down and up. And every single picture I've seen has, it just looks like the perfectly sized shawl for me. It's definitely not small. Like, Stephen West just doesn't do small shawls. Sometimes he has, different sizes, like a small and a small and a large version. This comes in just one size, so I'm 100% sure it's going to be big enough. Also, this is the kind of knitting that once you block it, it just opens up so much. And once that fabric relaxes, I know it's going to stretch out. And I have to tell you, I knew that this shawl would bring me a lot of joy, because I'm so into color, but it's bringing me more joy than I even thought possible. It's just, I don't know, it's just pure magic to work with so many colors, and each color unfolds, and as it comes together, the interplay of colors together is so just vibrant and evocative. I don't know how else to say it. It just evokes so much emotion and joy, and I don't know. I'm at a loss of words to explain how much I love this piece, and it's turning out to be just as I don't know. It's giving me the feeling I was hoping it would give me, and I have to say, even the back is so gorgeous. It gives it. It's kind of you can really just sink into the color progression better on the back than on the front, at least while it's not blocked. I'm really happy with the different tones of color. Like, if you look at the green section, especially, I just feel like I had a lot of fabulous greens to work with, and that bright Kelly green is just such a pop. And similarly in the oranges, you get some brighter tones, some deeper tones. It's magic. I love it so much. I'm at the end. I will show you the colors I have next. This gorgeous color by it's sort of a hot mess. This is the result of being kind of new. I've had this skein forever, and I was pulling from the center rather than the outside, and that causes, the yarn to collapse, the yarn cake to kind of collapse in on itself and become just like yarn barf. So that's why I never ever do that anymore. I pull from the outside. Even though the yarn kind of spins around, I use a yarn bowl to keep it under control. This gorgeous colorway, which is so usually unlike me, but I had this, I don't know why. I think I just bought, it was in that phase where I just bought more and more hedgehog fibers just because I was so intrigued by the hand-dyed yarn. I think this is called Pioneer, and it's like a deep forest green and this really moody midnight blue, and I think that'll be really pretty. Then I think I'm gonna go into this colorway possibly, and this one, I don't remember these two. They are not hedgehog fibers. And then I might purchase like a mini skein to do my last color, to be something more akin to one of these colors, so that there's sort of a, full circle kind of moment from the beginning to the end. I wish I had enough of these to do that last color, but I don't. So I might pop by Lula Fay. This really bright Kelly green, and then this pink, I think it was this pink, are these like mini skeins from Cowgirl Blues. And that I might try to see if I can find a purple that will be appropriate to wrap up this shawl. I've had a lot of knitting time on it. And the longer the rows get, you can just kind of fall into that rhythmic knitting. You're not constantly changing. So it was actually great car knitting. It was great hotel knitting. It was great, really sick knitting. And I have just powered through it. I really want to finish this in June. June is Pride Month, and I just wanted to have this be my Pride shawl. So I honestly think this might be my favorite shawl I've ever made, just because to me, rainbow is a neutral, and so I feel like I'll be able to wear it on everything, whereas some of my other shawls that are more like one tone or one color family don't go with everything, but this is just such a chaos of color that I feel like it will go with everything. So I'm very excited about it. And that's that. Let's see, I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I'm looking at my notes. I really need my notes today. But anyway, so that's that. I also just knit on one day this weekend. I did knit on my outline tee by Jessie Made Designs, but I'm not really in love with that project right now. It's kind of a really simple pattern with a really simple yarn, and so it's just not, it's too, I think sometimes when you have a simpler pattern, it's nice to have an interesting yarn that you're watching unfold. So honestly, I'm just not feeling summer knits right now either, like short sleeves. I'm just in a shawl state of mind, and that hasn't changed since summer has progressed. I did get the yarn last time I chatted about the striped Essian. I watched Linda's podcast, that it was so fun to see a new podcast from her. Linda Bjork Eriksdotter, who has her own podcast and is Stephen West's test knits manager, captain, queen, whatever you want to call her. She had a new podcast out, and she was talking about the striped Essian, and I realized I was saying that like a good old Texan, striped Esjan, and it's not, it's Essian. Anyway, you guys know I was on the fence about casting that on for my trip instead of you taking the painting bricks. but I just didn't feel good about it. And I don't like casting things on when I'm not feeling good about the timing. I felt like it was just not the right timing and that I needed to really like allow myself to fall in love with the painting bricks. And it was just the right call through and through, because I found my rhythm with that, and I just absolutely loved every stitch that I got to knit, and I'm almost done. So I'm really, really thrilled about that. Also, I had a very specific color story that I wanted for the striped Essian, and I couldn't find that yarn anywhere locally. I always would prefer to buy from my local yarn shops, and considering I have so many local yarn shops, but I just couldn't find what I was looking for. And so my second choice is always to go with Wool & Company, which is a brick and mortar store. I think they're in Chicago, and they also have a really strong online store, a really, really beautiful online presence. What I love about them so much is that they will wind your yarn for you. And I am happy to wind my own yarn, but it's not my choice. So the fact that they do that free of charge is just huge. And the fact that their yarn selection is just insanely comprehensive, and it's just awesome. So they have hedgehog fibers and La Bien Aimée and Farmer's Daughter and other yarns that I've never, like a whole bunch of European lines that I don't see at my local yarn shops. But anyway, I finally got the yarns. I finally picked them and ordered them, and they arrived, and I'm going to show you that real quick. I am so excited about these, you guys. I really wanted to do, a like barely there pink for the border, for the body, and then for the lace, that fabulous lace border, I wanted to do black. I found one of the pictures on Ravelry on the projects page it is spectacular. I'm gonna take a sip of water real quick. So this is the first color I picked. Isn't it just so lovely? This is called Oyster by Hedgehog Fibers. It's actually a newer colorway of hers. When I saw it, I was just like, it's like she read my mind and dyed this up for this specific project for me. This is why once I saw this, nothing I saw at a local yarn shop was quite right, because as you can see, it's that gorgeous, barely there pink. And this pink is so pretty because it's an actual pink. I'll show you the other colorway in contrast, which is barely there grayish pink. You know what I'm saying? Like, it has a very different tone than this. I felt like, because in this pattern, I think it's striped, just very simple pattern the body is alternating stripes. So I wanted them to be similar, but not so similar that there wasn't any tonal interest. So after I cannot tell you how many different colorways color combinations I tried to put together, but this is the one after many days that I still kept coming back to. This is La Bien Aimée, and it's in the singles base in the colorway Jinju, which I just love this because it's got more gray in it, and it's just so delicate. And I feel like it'll tone this down because this is so much more pink. My daughter was like, it reminds me of shrimp, and it totally does. Like, it reminds me of when you boil a shrimp and it turns this pinky color with the black vein, as for not to gross you out, but I just, that's what it kind of reminds me of. I thought she nailed it, but it's called Oyster, if I didn't already say that. But I'm just in love. I cannot wait to cast this on. I did not buy a black because one of my favorite shops, Lula Fay, has Knitting for Olive. She carries that, and I've been dying to try that. I've never tried Knitting for Olive, and I wanted to try their lace mohair. So that's only in the border, so it's gonna be a hot second before I get to the border. So I have plenty of time to procure a black mohair, silk mohair. But yeah, I'm really happy with those colors. I'll give you a gander one last time. Shouldn't have put them away so quickly. But again, like, how lovely is it to just have your yarn caked up for you? I just love Wool & Co. If you've not checked them out, you really should. But I'm really excited about this color combo. Like, Hedgehog just does such a fabulous job of giving you a soft color with like pops of neon, and that orange, and those orange and neon pink speckles are just spectacular. So that is that. Super happy about that. Looking forward to casting that on. I am just, like I said, very, very happy that I decided to stick with painting bricks and not jump into the striped Essien before its time had come. You know what I mean? I felt like I needed to, sometimes we've talked about this, like sometimes there's a point in every project where you're like bored and ready to cast on the next thing. And oddly, this was one of those projects, the painting bricks, where the beginning was boring, but since I got my rhythm somewhere about maybe 6 or 7 color bricks in, I just have found it so purely joyful. And if I had jumped and started the striped Essien, I don't think I would have given myself time to find that rhythm. And then I would have been guilty and kind of juggling, and I'm just glad I didn't. So I'm gonna finish this one. I'm really hoping I finish it this weekend, and either I'm gonna cast this one on or see if I have the bandwidth mentally to jump back into my MCAL and finish clue 4 of that. That would make me feel really, really good, to be honest, is to make some progress on that. That is all the works in progress and new yarn I have to show you. I do, I'm trying to think if I think I'm going to save some of the other shawl chit chat and shawls that are on my radar for next time, because I have to be honest, I am feeling very tired right now. I would rather just give you a quick life update and tell you some other stuff, and then return to my normal format. Not that this isn't normal, but I have so much more yarny things to talk about. I just don't think I quite have the energy right now. So if you are interested in a life update, hang around. If you are not, I hope you are inclined to come back next time, and that I have not driven you away with my unusually toned down personality today, probably. If you are familiar with my podcast, you know that I'm usually a lot more energetic. I feel like I'm moving through molasses sort of right now. So as you know, we dropped off our kids at their camp, their sleepaway camp, last Monday, I think. And from there, my husband and I were going to take a much needed trip to Aspen. We were going to just have a little time, just the two of us, which was so long overdue. You know how it is during the pandemic, and it's just been crazy. Like, I can't remember having more than like 24-hour stint by ourselves in the last 4 years, 3-4 years. So we were going to Aspen, and it was just absolutely magical. Like, the hotel we were staying in was so cool. One of my all-time favorite hotels. It's called the Hotel Jerome. If you're ever in Aspen, I highly recommend you at least go hang out there. It is a historic hotel, but just redone and just really, really, really cool. Really worth visiting if you have the chance. But anyway, All was super fun for the first 2.5 days. You know, if you've watched my podcast before, you know, I'm a super active person. We would work out in the morning and then we would take, you know, like a 10-mile hike, really, you know, tough hikes. And I am really used to moving a lot, but a lot of the movement I do ends up with a lot of, you know, just high intensity. So a lot of sweating and pounding heart, which then leads me to naturally hydrate to compensate for that. But when you're hiking, it's more of a slow boil than like a high roiling boil. So I personally was just not super aware of the fact that if you're on a 5-mile hike, you do still need to hydrate, just like you would need to hydrate for a really intense workout. So I don't, and also you're on a 5-6 mile hike. I don't want to pee in the forest. So I just wasn't drinking enough water. And then to boot, it was sort of a perfect storm situation where I think I ate something that just didn't sit well with me. And by just about Wednesday at like 4, we got back to our hotel room to rest before dinner, and I just got really sick. I had just crazy stomach stuff. I will spare you the details. But when I get really sick, I have very low blood pressure and I'm just really prone to fainting. So long story short, I was in the bathroom and I think I fainted. Well, I know I fainted in retrospect, but I woke up on the ground just in a terrible way. My husband found me and I had hit my head super hard and just had an enormous goose egg on my head. Like, if you could have seen me, I never knew how fast something like that. It was like the size of this freaking yarn ball. I was just right here. You can kind of still see. It's looking, I just can't believe in 1 week how much better I look. It swole up, it was cut up, it was bloody. And then my husband called 911 and the paramedics came and they were like, look, that level of head wound, because I did not want to go to the emergency room, you guys. Like, who wants to go to the emergency room? At that point, I just wanted to crawl back into bed and go to sleep. But they were very kind, but very frank that with a head wound like that, you could very well have a brain bleed, and by the time I had symptoms of anything, it would be too late to treat that. So he was like, I really need to take you in and you need to have a CT scan of your head. And as much as I didn't want to do that, the idea of that just struck terror into my heart that, like, I don't know, like something so awful could happen and you could literally die if you weren't treated for it, for something so stupid. That's like the only thing I kept thinking is like, I'm not going to die for something so stupid, like literally just not hydrating enough and hitting my head super hard on the tile floor. Anyway, so of course, you know, it was one of the more humbling experiences to be wheeled through the lobby of the nicest hotel in town that is packed for dinner and for happy hour on a stretcher with a giant oozing wound on your head. It was not the best time ever, but you know, all is fine. The CT scan was clear. And the doctor was very sweet. Everybody there was great. I just have a minor concussion, which will resolve of its own in its own time. But I do have to say I feel it's definitely something I feel like as I sit here, I don't feel great, but I'm going to finish this regardless. So yeah, it was not the break I wanted. It was 5 days, and 2.5 of those days were exactly what I wanted, which was super active and exploring incredible hikes and eating at incredible restaurants. And the other 2.5 days were the break that I guess I needed, which was complete rest and just literally in bed, napping, knitting, listening to an audiobook. And, my sweet husband he just was so sweet, took me to the spa, and we did, had some quiet recovery one of those days. And to be honest, we binge watched Netflix, and I'm not lying when I say it's been like a good 20 years since I like binge watched something like that. Like just literally slothful in bed, watching episode after episode. And now I remember why I did it 20 years ago, because y'all, it's kind of amazing. It's kind of amazing to just lay there and stare at the TV. And it was I can't imagine ever doing that for myself unless this kind of thing happened. So as much as I was just mourning the fact that I was in Aspen and not able to enjoy that incredible town, I did get a much needed break. And, sometimes life is like that. You don't even know you could use a break like that until it's forced upon you. And I'm just grateful it wasn't worse. I'm grateful it wasn't one of my kids or my husband. I'm just grateful that if it had to be, that it was the way it was. And like I said, that it wasn't worse. And not only that, but it's just like, bad things happen all the time around us. But somehow when they happen to us, like when something shocking happens, it's still shocking. Like, I don't know why that is. Like, I was trying to think, like, if that had happened to one of my friends, I'd just be like, oh my God, that's so crazy. But things like this happen all the time. We hear about them happening all the time, but when they happen to us, they're always still surprising. And I don't know why that is, but once the shock wore off, I was able to kind of find more gratitude. And we got home, we picked my daughter up. She had had a great time at camp. It was her first camp experience, so I was so grateful. She had had a great time, but she wasn't feeling great either. I think she had caught a cold, and she was just exhausted from not enough rest and just an absolute zombie by the time we got home. And so, we got home Saturday, and she just slept all day, woke up for an hour, slept all night, and then Sunday morning, as if, when it rains, it pours, we realized our basement had flooded while we were gone, which was just crazy. And so I had put an Instacart order in because I just obviously didn't have the bandwidth to go to the grocery store, but we didn't have any food. And so I had ordered Instacart, and my daughter was asking for a couple things. She wanted Cheerios, and I hadn't added that to my shopping thing. So I quickly messaged my shopper like, hey, I'm so sorry to be last minute, but could you add these couple of things? And then he's like, of course, no problem. And then I remembered a couple of other things, and I asked him again, and I said, hey, I'm so sorry to be a pain, but my daughter's sick, and I just realized my basement's flooded, but could you get some bottled water, because we had to shut down our water. And he said, he responded and said, no worries at all. I've delivered to you many times. Whatever you need, I've got you. And y'all, I don't know what it was about that message that it struck me so deeply. Like, that small kindness it just meant so much to me. Like, he could have so easily been like, here's this woman, I'm doing her shopping. She can't even be bothered to do her own shopping. Like, I don't care if your freaking basement flooded. Like, he could have just not responded, just like given it a thumbs up and gone about doing it. But that sentence just struck me so much. How, like, he was this invisible hand in my life that I didn't even think about. And the fact that he took what little connection we had and he saw it, and he was like, that phrase, I've got you. Like, I can't even tell you how much it meant to me in that moment where just so much was going on. And I always am the kind of person that's like, it could be so much worse. It could be so much worse. I don't ever want to be the kind of person that's like, oh, why is this happening to me? Because stuff happens to everybody all the time. We don't even know what's happening with people most of the time. And just how much that meant to me just made me realize, like, number one, we're all just so connected and we don't even think about it. Like, his ability in that tiny way of the ability of a stranger to lean into his instinct towards kindness was so impactful for me. And it just made me realize, like, yes, if we're lucky, we've got very close people in our lives, like your family and your dear friends, that are going to show up and take care of you in big ways. But just as meaningful are the small things, like the really kind pharmacist, the really kind nurse, your kid's teacher, the barista at the coffee shop that smiles and sees you. Those are just as meaningful in making us feel cared for in this life as the big relationships in our lives. And it just made me realize, like, when I'm well and I'm going about my business, to slow down enough to see how you can show up and be kind for someone else, even in the smallest way, can really mean something to them, as it meant for me. It stayed with me for days. I actually wrote him a note and slipped it into a bag and gave him an extra tip because I wanted him to know that I really appreciated it. And I literally just wrote, I appreciate you so much. It wasn't like some deep thing, but I think when we see those things, we have to say how much it means to us, because if we don't, people won't realize how important it is. And I don't know, we're just all so jaded by the world right now. Like, I think especially because we've got access to the world all the time, 24/7. We all are just bombarded with what's happening around the world, and whatever news source you follow or wherever you get that information is just so sopping wet with negativity and horrible stuff that it's so divisive, and it makes us feel so separate. Like, it's so easy to be like, oh, that horrible stuff is because of those people and those people are bad. Whereas if we look in our real lives and we slow down enough to see the people around us without labels and just as human as us, we just see so much goodness. Like, I don't know. If we spent less time looking at our news feeds or whatever information and more time truly seeing the people we encounter day by day without the stuff that we use to distinguish themselves from us, I just feel like we'd have so much more hope for this world, because there are so many good people, and even the people we would characterize as bad probably have deep goodness in them. And I think it's important to slow down enough to see that. That was a very long-winded anecdote, but I had to share that with you because I think it's so important to just realize the impact we can have on each other. And I think it's really important to me to always, have conversations here that are real and meaningful. And my hope is that we have a community, as small as it is, that breeds going out into the world and being a little kinder and a little more loving. And in that, spreading that further, because just like hate and impatience and unkindness can spread, so can love and reaching out our hands to each other. So anyway, that is that. I am on the mend. I have to be very careful. I cannot hit my head again. I had to slow down a lot, which is sometimes wonderful. All a knitter ever sees is time to knit. But when you get more time, like a lot more time to knit, sometimes it's like, oh, I miss being active and I miss hustling and bustling around. And I know that once I'm back to myself, I'll be able to get back to that. I just have to be really respectful of my limitations right now, which is totally fine. I'm leaning into it. I've knocked out this fingering weight shawl in no time because I've had more time to knit. What was I going to say? Oh, I do have to say, I got to read or listen to an audiobook, and I ended up, last time we chatted about Remarkably Bright Creatures, the book that one of you had recommended, Heather. She had sent me a DM on Instagram saying, I really think you would like this book. And I told you last time I had been super reluctant to read it because I have a very soft heart for animals, and I'm always scared to encounter any book or movie or show that has any bad thing happening to an animal. I cannot take it. So I was really reluctant to read it because there was an octopus in it. And you all were so kind. So many of you sent me messages saying, no, you should definitely read it. It's so good. Nothing bad happens. And you guys, oh my Lord, that book could not have been better timed in my life. It was just like the perfect companion for this really crazy time. It was just the perfect book. I don't love the phrase feel good, like feel good movie or feel good book, but I'd hesitate to find any other phrase for this book because it was so heartwarming, and I literally sobbed at the end. I literally laid on the ground with my Great Pyrenees Scout. She was like, oh God, what are you doing? She's very, Great Pyrenees are not like a typical dog. They're more like a mix between a cat and a dog. They're very aloof. They're not super cuddly dogs. So she was like, why is she on the ground with me crying? She's a very sensitive creature. But I'm not going to spoil anything for you, but y'all, you need to read this book. It was just the best. You're just rooting for everybody in this book, and I loved every word, and I couldn't recommend it more. So please read Remarkably Bright Creatures. Thank you, Heather, for the recommendation. It was the best. I literally could read the entire thing over again because it was so good. And I told you we literally binged Netflix, and my favorite thing that we watched was on Netflix. It's a series called Beef. I'm sure you've heard of it if you're into TV watching. But I have to say, I feel like I should have heard a lot more of it. I feel like there should have been more hype around it because This show is phenomenal. Like, I guess they would qualify it as a dark comedy. I guess that's right. It was so, so good. I mean, the story is compelling and just powers forward. Like, there's just so much momentum. But then the human story underneath the actual drama of the story is so real and visceral. And the actors are Ali Wong and Stephen Ewan. I think that's how you pronounced it. I have no idea, actually. So I apologize if I'm not pronouncing that correctly. He is absolutely, they are mind-blowingly good. And I love seeing a major series like that with Asian American characters as an Asian American, Southeast Asian American. It's just so great to see shows or movies where the characters are so complex and not, they're minorities, and they're just so well portrayed. And I was just absolutely fabulous. I mean, I'm just rambling at this point, but you really should watch it. It's so good. And it, as a child of immigrants, it portrays some of that difficulty and angst so beautifully. And I just loved it. I absolutely loved it. I could, again, watch Beef again, top to bottom, because it's that good. We also watched The Watcher, which is pretty good. Wasn't great, but good. Because, note to self, we had started Beef before we went to Aspen, so we finished it there. And then when we got back, my daughter was literally sleeping like 15 hours a day. I'm not even kidding. It was like having a baby that actually sleeps. It was kind of amazing. And so we got a lot of time to just chill and watch TV. And so we also found a series called The Sinner. I think it's on Netflix or Hulu, I can't remember, but it's really, really good also. All crime dramas. I love crime dramas. It's a guilty pleasure. I don't like light, frothy stuff, really. Like, I love comedies, but if it's a comedy, I'm usually just going to watch Frasier or Seinfeld, because to me, there is no comedy better than those that have come along since then. Like, I like Schitt's Creek, of course, but I do love me a good murder crime drama. So please, if you have any suggestions, do send them my way. But yeah, that's all that that's a lot. That's a lot of recommendations and a chit chat. Oh my gosh, I just realized it's been like 45 minutes. I'm glad I did not talk about the other Shawl stuff. I will save it for next time, because I'm really excited about that, and I wanted to be able to speak about it with more enthusiasm than I'm able to muster right this second. But anyway, thank you for listening. If you are still here, thank you so much for watching and for excusing my face. There's just not much I can do right now to look or feel cute. I'm actually like looking at myself thinking, I look better than I thought I would look. Like, the swelling, the general swelling has gone down so much. Like, I'll tell you, the weirdest thing is I must have hit my nose, and you can see like there's a bit of a bruise now still, but this part had swollen so much that my tear ducts had like disappeared from all the swelling. And it was really creepy, because like my eyes would itch, but I had no tear ducts. And it was just like the contours of your face just completely changing like in an instant was really freaky. Like, every time I walk up and look at myself in the mirror, I startle myself because I'll forget. But I feel like I look a lot better right now than I have for the last week. But anyway, I hope it fades quickly, and more importantly, I hope I feel better quickly. I hope you, my friends, have had a fabulous last few weeks, that your summer is off to a fabulous start. If you are in the States, I hope you're not sweltering already. We're having some majorly hot weather in the south, and I feel for you, man. We live in Colorado, and I mean, I'm not going to complain because it's like 80 degrees, but God, I miss the spring where it was pouring rain. That was just so glorious. I'm not much of a warm weather gal, but regardless, we're making it through. I hope you are too. And I will see you next time. Okay? Bye, my friends.